in March. Can you give me the DoD's estimate for the number of individuals who would qualify for the presumption of service-related connection? Do you have any sense of that?
Thank you for the question. I do not. Oh, thank you. Sorry. I do not have an actual number. I know that the definition is rare means 6 per 100,000, I believe. But I would have to come back. And yes, they did. It's 9 conditions related to high particulate matter. And
that brings the total that the VA has now designated as presumed service connection to what?
12, I believe, relative to particulate matter. Because sinusitis, rhinitis, and asthma was also made presumptive, I want to say 3 months or so ago.
Okay. Could you come back to me on the numbers, such as could you look into that and get back to me for the record?
And the idea would be for us to predict what we think the numbers would be.
Given the likely exposure since 2001. Give me some sense of the scope of the universe that we're looking at here.
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Ms. Penrod, shifting to you, that this committee heard earlier this month testimony relating to the tragedy of service member suicide. I know the department's been attentive to this, but the GAO has reported a statistically significant increase, I'm sure you know, in active component suicide from 2015 to 2020, and that's true across all of the services. Let me just ask for your view about why this issue persists despite DoD's attempts to address it.
Senator, I am going to defer to Ms. Foster.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Her portfolio.
Sure, go ahead, Ms. Foster.
Senator, thank you so much for the question. And let me just say, first off, that these are tragedies that have absolutely no place in our force, and we need to continue our concerted efforts to get after this. I think the reason that this issue continues to persist is suicide is the result of a number of different complex factors, so psychological, environmental, social, behavioral. And as a result of that, there is no one single fix that we can have to address this. And, you know, this is not just a problem within the Department of Defense, it's a problem within the civilian community as well. But we are taking a public health approach to urgently get after this issue, and we're doing that through a few different ways. One of the ways in which I'll highlight is we are standing up a dedicated and specialized violence prevention workforce that is intended to address those risk factors that we see that exacerbate this issue and enhance some of the protective factors that are critical to getting after this.
Got it. Thank you. That's helpful. What do you think, in your view, the weak points are in the department's current efforts to address this issue?
Senator, I think that the science is evolving rapidly on this issue, and so we are following the emerging science and data on this to address this and taking that integrated primary prevention and public health approach to this issue. We absolutely have more work to do, but we are moving quickly to take these steps.
Well, I'm sure we'll be talking more about this. I mean, it's a huge problem, as you say. It's unfortunately a growing problem. It does span both the civilian and the military worlds, the service worlds, and it's clearly something that we need to address in both of those contexts. So I look forward to working with you more on that. Mr. Cisneros, Mr. Secretary, if I could just shift to you in my remaining moments here. As you might imagine, I have received a lot of communication from constituents who are concerned about military discharges as a result of the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. Can you tell me how many service members within each individual service and across them have been discharged as a result of the vaccine mandate?
Thank you for that question, Senator. Ensuring that all our service members are ready and able to deploy and be part of our fighting force is an important thing. I know it's important to the Secretary and a requirement that he's made. In regards to the number of people that we've been discharged because of the COVID vaccine, I do not have that exact number with me today, but that's something I can take back for the record.
Great, thank you very much. Can you also find out what percentage across and within each service were issued as a general discharge under honorable conditions rather than an honorable discharge? Can you find that out for me?
I can look into that, Senator.
Okay, great. And maybe you can tell me this. How does the department evaluate the character of the discharge resulting from the vaccination requirement?
Well, right now, Senator, those that are being discharged, if anyone is being discharged because of refusal to take the vaccine, they are getting either it's an honorable or the next level below that, that was dictated by the last NDAA that we follow, and so that's what we've been doing.
And how do you distinguish, though, between those two categories?
That, sir, is up to the services. They process the discharges. They are the ones who make the decision on the individual basis as to what's going on and why it's an honorable or why it's not an honorable discharge.
But surely, given that this is a very widespread issue and the numbers are pretty large, there's some uniform criteria, I would think.
Sir, we have our we have our policy, the same policy for waivers and for whether it be medical or for religious waivers, and that has been in place for a while now, and that is the policy that we have gone to the services and told them to make sure that they are following these procedures. With that, I think Ms. Pinrod could kind of give you a little bit more detail on that.
Sir, as with any discharge, a service will look at the conditions around that discharge, so it's not always straightforward. It could be other circumstances with an individual case, and that's why we need to, it would be the services who would have to answer that, why they would have a certain number of honorable versus general discharges.
But am I right in thinking that when it comes to this issue, I mean, this distinction between an honorable discharge or the general discharge under honorable conditions, as it relates to COVID-19, there's some set of uniform criteria that are governing these decisions, right? I understand that you have to make a case-by-case evaluation, but there are a lot of these cases that are presenting the same basic sets of facts.
Yes, but the services are looking at each case individually, so that's what they do. They review these cases, and they look at all the circumstances of the cases. That is not something we would be able to do at our level.
Well, I understand that. I'm just trying to get the information. So I understand. Listen, I'm a lawyer. I mean, courts assess cases on a case-by-case basis. That's what litigation means. But you do it according to a standard rule. You don't just make it up as you go along. I want to know what the rule is, what the criteria. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. And we do. We do have procedures in place that have been there that govern the waivers, and then as far as discharges go, there are procedures in place and instructions that guide that, and that's kind of what the services are following.
Can you get me that information?
Sir, if I may, sir, so it's really a two-step process. If it's a religious accommodation, for example, it's up to the department to determine whether or not that's a sincerely held belief. In most cases, that is being passed. The individuals, I have a religious reason for not having the vaccine, that's clearly passed. The next step is, what is the impact to the health and welfare of the service? Is there a safety issue? So that's the next standard that they look at. For the services, that's the standard that causes the concern for the safety and welfare of the service. And so those are the standards. Those are clear in policy. The procedures themselves are different by service, and that's what we're reviewing currently.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have any other questions. This panel, mine's already been asked and answered. But I will say this: my office, I've got 5 military bases in my state. My office has been overwhelmed